a clay prism the size of a closed fist, a king who was said to have ruled for 28,800 years, and a flood, written plainly into the middle of the page, that swept an entire world away. In the winter of 1922, an English collector named Herbert Weld Blundell came into possession of a small four-sided prism of baked clay, pierced down its length as though it had once turned on a rod, so that it could be read face by face. It had come out of the ground in southern Iraq, and every surface was covered in tight columns of cuneiform. He sent it to Oxford, to a scholar named Stephen Langdon, who expected an ordinary record, a temple inventory, a list of offerings. What he found instead was a list of kings stretching back before history, with reigns no human life could hold, and buried in the middle of it, in 5 short words, the end of the world. Tonight we read that prism slowly, from the first impossible king to the flood that resets the count, and we ask the question the scribes left waiting for 4,000 years. If these quiet histories help you rest, subscribing lets the next one find you. Settle in. Most cuneiform documents are ordinary. They are receipts, ration lists, temple accounts, the patient paperwork of a civilization that wrote down almost everything it did. So when Stephen Langdon sat down with the Weld Blundell Prism in 1923, he had no reason to expect anything strange. But this document ran across all 4 faces without breaking. It named kings in order, city by city, dynasty by dynasty, and beside each name it set down how long that king had reigned, and when Langdon read the very first entry, he stopped. The first king was named Allulim. His city was Eridu, the oldest city the Sumerians remembered, and the length of his reign was given as 28,800 years. His first thought was the careful one. He assumed he had misread the figure, or that a scribe had slipped, or that the number was a kind of poetry, the ancient way of saying that a king ruled for an age. But the second king was given 36,000 years. The 2 of them together had held one small city for over 60,000 years, and the numbers did not stop. They continued, king after king, in figures so large no human dynasty could contain them. This was not one slip of the stylus. It was the structure of the entire document, and every other copy of it, found across Iraq, agreed. The list opens with a line that sets the weight for everything that follows. When kingship descended from heaven, it says, kingship was in Eridu. Not was established, descended, as though kingship were an object, lowered from somewhere above and set down in the first city. What follows is a roster of 8 kings, ruling in 5 cities in the age before the flood. After Eridu, the seat of power moves to Bad Tibira, then to Shuruppak. Each city holds kingship for a span of years that reads less like a chronicle and more like astronomy. One king of Bad Tibira, Enmenlu-Ana, is credited with a single reign of 43,200 years, the longest in the entire document. A single man. One line of cuneiform, longer than the whole of recorded human history. And when you add the pre-flood section together, the 8 kings of the 5 cities are said to have reigned for a combined total of 241,200 years. Nearly 250,000 years of kingship, recorded by a culture that counted its grain to the last measure and set down as plainly as a list of expenses. No wonder. No apology, just the names, the cities, and the impossible numbers carved to last. These first kings did not rule alone. Sumerian tradition placed beside them a second group, the apkallu, the 7 sages, and the sages were not described as men. They were said to be beings who came up out of the waters, cloaked in the form of fish, who brought to the first cities every art of civilization, writing, the building of temples, the working of the land, one king, one sage, counselling the throne from the edge of the sea. Centuries later, a Babylonian priest would record the first of them under the name Oannes, a creature with the body of a fish that came ashore by day to teach humanity and returned to the dark water each night. It taught everything, the priest wrote, and since that time nothing more has been discovered. Hold that image for a moment, because it is the strangest part of the oldest record we have. The kings who ruled for 30,000 years were not imagined as the source of their own greatness. The knowledge came from somewhere else, from something that rose out of the water, gave humanity its first civilization whole and complete, and then went back under. And then, in the middle of the prism, that first world ends. It comes in a single line, after the 8 kings, after the 250,000 years, after the sages from the sea. The list says only this: then the flood swept over. 5 words. And the first world is sealed off behind them. Everything before that line, the descent of kingship, the impossible reigns, the fish-cloaked teachers, all of it is closed away by that one sentence. The last king named before the water comes is Zusudra, the king of Shurupak, and in other Sumerian texts, Zusudra is the man who was warned, who built a great boat, and who outlived the flood when everything else was washed away. He is the oldest version of the story the world would later tell about Noah, 1,000 years older than the Bible. And then the King List begins again, with a phrase that deliberately mirrors its own opening. After the flood had swept over, it says, and kingship had descended from heaven a second time, kingship was in Kish. A second descent, a second beginning. The same machinery lowered again from the same sky, onto a world that had just been wiped clean, as though the flood were not an ending at all, but only the line between one age of the list and the next. After the flood, something changes in the numbers. They do not become ordinary all at once. The first kings of the second world still reign for hundreds, even thousands of years, but the figures fall steadily now, dynasty by dynasty, as though the document is walking down a long staircase out of legend and into history. By the time the list reaches a king of Uruk named Gilgamesh, the same Gilgamesh whose epic would become the oldest great story ever told, his reign is given as 126 years. Still long, no longer cosmic. And by the final dynasties, the kings reign for the spans that real kings actually reign. 20 years, 6 years, a single year, among rulers whose existence archaeology can confirm with bricks and broken walls. So the prism does something very deliberate. It begins in numbers no human could live, and it walks you down, step by step, until it sets you gently into recorded history, and it draws no line between the two. The kings who ruled for 30,000 years, and the kings who ruled for 6, belong to the same list, the same descent, the same unbroken institution. To the scribes, it was all one record, all equally true. And here the numbers themselves begin to speak, because the reigns are not random, they are built. The Sumerians counted in base 60, a system we still carry, without thinking. Every time we read a clock or measure the degrees of a circle, in their counting, a unit called the sos was 60, a ner was 600, and a sar, the great unit, was 3,600. 60 times 60. Look again at Elulim's 28,800 years, and something clean appears underneath it. It is exactly 8 sar, 8 times 3,600. His successor's 36,000 years is 10 sar, Enmenluana's 43,200 is 12. Every one of the impossible reigns taken apart is a tidy multiple of these sacred 60s, not approximate, exact. The numbers that look like the ravings of myth are, underneath, a clean and deliberate arithmetic, assembled out of the most sacred quantities in the Sumerian world. Which changes the question entirely. The scribes were not bad at counting. They were the best counters in the world. They knew these were not the lengths of human lives. They were too perfect for that, so the reigns were never measurements at all. They were statements written in the only language the Sumerians held truly sacred, the language of number. In the 20th century, a scholar named Dwight Young spent years on exactly this puzzle, and he showed that the pre-flood figures are built, almost without exception, out of squares of 60 and the number 6, combined in a small handful of patterns. The reigns were not estimates. They were composed. Someone sat down and assembled these numbers the way a composer assembles a piece of music out of a fixed set of notes. Every great reign is a chord struck from the same sacred scale. And once you see that, the meaning of the numbers turns over. In this system, the length of a reign was not how long a king lived. It was how close he stood to the source. The further back a king sat, the nearer he was to the moment kingship came down from heaven, and the larger, the more saturated with holy 60s his reign became. Size was nearness to the divine. The first king reigned for 8 Sar, not because he lived 8 Sar, but because he stood almost at the doorway of heaven itself, and the number had to be vast to say so. The flood, then, is the moment the doorway closes. Before it, men stand near the source, and the numbers are enormous. After it, the door is shut, and the numbers begin their long fall toward the merely human. There is one more echo, and it is the one scholars have never quite been able to explain away. Centuries after the King List, a Babylonian priest named Berossus wrote a history of his land in Greek for a Greek-speaking world. He recorded the same tradition. 10 kings before the flood, reigning for a combined 432,000 years. And that figure, 432,000, is exactly 120 Sar. The same sacred arithmetic still running centuries later. But the same enormous number appears in places Babylon never touched. It is woven into the sacred time cycles of the Indian subcontinent, into great ages of the world that rise and decline and end in a flood and begin again, the same vast count surfacing in separate civilizations, always measuring the distance between one creation and the next. And the deepest echo of all is the one most of the world already knows by heart. In the book of Genesis, 10 generations stand between the first man and the flood. Their lives are impossibly long. Methuselah lives 969 years. Then the flood comes, and afterward the recorded ages fall, generation by generation, towards something human. 10 long-lived ancestors, a flood, a shrinking afterward. Written down long before Genesis, tells the same story, with kings in the place of patriarchs. This is the part of the King List that the textbooks tend to move past quickly. The list is famous. It appears in every survey of Mesopotamian history, because it gives us the names and the order of the earliest dynasties, and much of it, the later part, is genuinely solid history, but the reign numbers, the descent from heaven, the flood, set down in the middle of the page. These are usually handed to the reader in a single sentence, labelled as legend, and then the discussion moves on to firmer ground. It is not a conspiracy, it is something quieter. It is the discomfort of a careful discipline standing in front of a careful document that clearly means something it cannot fully read. Because the people who wrote this were not improvising stories around a fire. They were the most literate, most numerate, most relentlessly precise civilization of their age. And these same people chose to open their official record of kingship with 250,000 years of rulers built from their holiest numbers and divided down the middle by a flood. So the question is not whether the kings truly ruled for 30,000 years. They did not. The numbers say so themselves. The question is what the length of a reign was meant to measure, if not a human life, what it meant to stand near the moment kingship came down, and why the oldest memory of this civilization takes the exact shape of the story that would be told long after in Genesis. The prism still turns on its spindle. In a glass case in Oxford, 4 faces, one continuous list. It begins in heaven and ends in history, and somewhere in the middle, in 5 short words, an entire world is swept away. The scribes wrote it down the way they wrote down everything, plainly, completely, as though they expected someone one day to read it and understand what they had counted. We have read it. We're still working out what it says. If you would like to stand in another of these forgotten rooms tomorrow night, the channel is here and the next door is already open. Rest well.